I think one of the most fun parts of producing music is sitting down with a fresh project and a blank slate and just creating something from scratch. It can be really inspiring just to create a short little beat or a loop from some recordings or some samples. But I think that fun can drop off pretty quickly when you try to consider how to take that short little loop and turn it into a full song or track. And I think that's especially the case when using a piece of hardware like a sampler to create a full piece of music where the workflow can almost kind of get in the way of the creativity. And for me lately, I've been using my Roland SP-404 a lot, which has been tons of fun, but used to kind of trip me up in the workflow of how I could actually create a full track out of just a beat. So I've spent a lot of time recently working on my workflow and thinking of ways to take something basic and turn it into something much bigger. And a lot of that has come down to what I think of as building blocks, where I'm taking small samples and I'm turning them into bigger samples. I'm taking those bigger samples and putting them together and to create these little patterns and sequences and stringing all those together to create a full track. And creating those building blocks sort of reminds me of this French term used in cooking, which I'm sure I'm going to butcher, but it's something along the lines of mise en place. But basically the idea is that you're prepping things ahead of time. So you're cutting up your veggies, you're getting whatever sauces ready you need for that cooking process, so that when you actually need to start cooking, you've got everything ready to go. And for me, that's meant taking these smaller samples and stringing them together and resampling them into these larger samples that I know will string together nicely to create a full track. Yesterday, I started putting together a beat that I thought would be a perfect example of how I like to implement this process. And it's just a basic 2-bar pattern that I have going with one drum sample and some chops over it. And for me, I never want to hear the same 2-bar drum loop over and over again for an entire track, so I know I'm going to need some variations on it. So I figured I'd show you how I take a basic drum loop and create a bunch of variations on it that I can string together really easily. So let's hop over to the 404 and I'll show you. So I have a 2-bar pattern here that sounds like this. And the first thing I want to do is take the drums from this pattern and make it into one 2-bar drum sample. And to do that, I'm just going to copy the pattern, but instead of copying it to another pattern, I'm going to copy it to a sample. And then in order to just take the drums from that pattern, I'm going to hit Remain and select my drum sample. And then hit Copy. And then that will take just the drums from that one pattern and get it onto a sample. Cool. So now I have a perfect 2-bar loop of this one drum sample. And my goal is going to be to create 16 different variations of this one 2-bar pattern. So when I go to the pattern sequencing, I have lots of different options to choose from and quickly build up some good patterns. And the first 2 variations of this are going to be really simple. I just want to have one where the end is cut off and then one where the beginning is cut off. So I'll go ahead and copy the sample to the first couple pads. And for the one where the end is cut off, it's actually going to be really simple. I'm just going to use the Start End menu and cut off the end a little bit and see how that sounds. That probably sounds pretty cool. I can adjust that later pretty easily if I want. But for the one where I want to cut off the beginning, it's actually a little trickier because if I just use the Start End menu and I just chop a little bit from the beginning, it's actually going to start the sample right there. But I want the sample to start at the very beginning, but with silence at the beginning. So what I'm going to do is use an effect that has a level parameter on it. I'm going to turn the level all the way down and punch that in just for the beginning while I resample. So let me show you what that looks like. So for this, I'll usually use the compressor plugin. And if you push the encoder, there's another parameter there for level. And if you turn that level all the way down, it's essentially just a mute effect at this point. So if I play the original pattern and hit the effect, it should mute it. So I'll go ahead and resample onto the new pad, and I'll turn the effect on, and then as it's playing, or not actually hearing anything, I'll go ahead and turn the effect off, and that will turn the sample back on. Cool, and let's hear what that sounds like. Nice, so you can see the beginning is just silent there, which is exactly what we wanted. Now I want to do 2 or 3 variations where there's just a little beat dropout in the middle of the pattern, and I'll probably just use the same compressor effect to drop out. I could also use the mute bus to do that as well. Either way works just as well. So I'll go ahead and resample, and then play this original pattern, and I will turn the compressor on and off as it plays. Cool, so now I have a few variations with some dropouts. So those will sound pretty good. So now I want a couple ones where there's a fade in and a fade out, and that's going to be pretty easy. I'm just going to use the envelope for that. So I'll go ahead and copy the original sample onto these. And I'm going to use the envelope setting to get a fade in. Let's just turn it up all the way, see what that sounds like. Nice. And then on this one, we'll do a fade out. Nice, those will sound good. Now for these last 8, I want to be a bit creative here, so I'm going to use some effects that I know I like. So I think scatter will work really well. I'll probably use the DJFX Looper a little bit. And then I'm also going to do some filter sweeps, which I like the sound of that a lot. So let's start with DJFX Looper. That'll be pretty fun. So let's go ahead and resample to here, and then we'll play the original one, and we'll do some DJFX Looper stuff. That's kind of subtle. Let's see what that sounds like. That's kind of nice to have a really subtle variation. Let's do some more variations just like that. I didn't like that one, so I'll hit exit. So it cancels the recording, and then I can just go ahead and do it again. Let's hear what that sounds like. I don't love it, but I'm going to keep it because it might just actually sound cool with the rest of the beat. Let's do one more with the DJFX Looper. And let's hear what that sounds like. That's a little crazy, but that might sound cool. I'm going to keep it. All right, let's keep that same process going. This time we'll use scatter. I have scatter set up here. And of the different types, I like 2 a lot. I think that works really well with drums. And then there's some other ones that are pretty good too. I want to say like 8 and 9 work well with drums. I can't really remember, but I'm going to experiment around a bit and see what they sound like. All right, I didn't like that, so I'm going to hit exit to cancel it, and then hit the pad again and go ahead and try it again. That'll work, I think. I think that's pretty good for the more stuttery type effects. I am going to try roll real quick because I think that could sound cool. Let's set it to 1/4. Yep. And then let's try to grab the snare on beat 2 and have that repeat a couple of times. Okay, I think that'll sound pretty cool. Let me see if I can record it well. Nice. Cool. That's going to sound really good. The one thing to note about roll is it actually does repeat that little section of the phrase over and over again. So this pattern is going to be longer than 2 bars. I don't really care about that, but I could trim it down to 2 bars if I needed with some resampling, but that'll work fine just like that. Yeah, that actually sounds really good. And then I definitely need 1 or 2 with some filter sweeps. And I have the super filter set up here to the filter and drive knob. I don't know why they put filter and drive here. I don't think it sounds very good. I think the super filter sounds much better. If you don't know how to change the effects on these buttons, all you got to do is go into this effects setting, which is Shift 16, and then you scroll over to the very end. And this is where you can set those direct effects. So you can see I've changed a number of them. I really like the super filter. I definitely recommend trying it out. And I think I want to do a take where I actually just start it out low on the low pass. So you almost just hear kick. And then towards the very end, I'll turn up that cutoff to bring it back to its normal level. So let's dial in an amount that feels good with just the kick. Cool. I think that'll work. And then I'll turn up the knob as the sample plays. And let's Let's hear what that sounds like. Cool, that sounds good. Maybe let's try the same thing with high pass, see if that'll work. Yeah, let's give that a shot. Let's see if that works. I don't know if I love that as much, but I'm going to keep it, and maybe it'll sound good within the context of the beat. All right, I got one more pad. Let's be weird and creative with it. Let's try some effects I wouldn't normally use. Nope. That's kind of interesting. All right, cool. I think this downer is actually going to sound pretty cool. Let's go ahead and resample with that. Nice. So now I have 16 variations on my original drum groove here, and I can put them together in the pattern sequencer. So let's hear the original beat, and then let's start sequencing in some of those drum variations. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this over to a fresh new page of patterns. I'm also going to double the length. I want to do a 4-bar pattern, which means I'll be able to put multiple 2-bar drum patterns together for each pattern. So let's duplicate it. And then a couple of things I want to do with this bank before I start sampling it. One is I need to turn gate off so they'll play all the way through. And then I'm also going to put them all into a mute group as well, so I can maybe try to play some more often than just once every 2 bars and come up with some cool combinations. So Shift 8 is how you get to mute groups, and then I'm just going to add all of them into that mute group. So now they should cut each other off when I play them. Cool. So now we can go start recording onto a pattern. Let's go ahead and do another one. Nice. So you can see how quickly and easily, now that I've got these little 2-bar drum patterns, I can start layering them onto different patterns, and hopefully I'll be able to put together a track pretty quickly. And I'm actually going to do the same thing with that original chop. I'm going to take that, resample it, and try to do some interesting things with it in these little chunks, and then I can just put together the chunks and patterns. So hopefully that was helpful. This is a really helpful method that I've been using to take like a small beat and put together a whole track out of it. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the video. See you later.